Well, hey, welcome. My name is Ned, and this is my dear friend Lou Flessner from Missouri, Kansas City. I'm up here in Seattle right now, and the two of us, along with a group of other gray hairs, I'm the young one in this mix, worked a few years ago on creating this thing called the Elder Rites of Passage, which we've held a couple times up here in the Washington area of Oconee Ranch, which is the beautiful place out. It's like a thousand acres of wilderness preserve in the southern desert of central Washington, right above the Columbia Gorge. And I asked Lou, I just wanted to talk with Lou for a couple minutes if he'd be willing to share a little bit about what the EROP has meant to him and what comes up for him. So thanks, Lou, for being here with me.
Thank you, Ned. Well, I guess the first thing I would say, and I'm counting on just this being a little bit conversational, but the first thing I would say is that most of the people I know and what I hear reported is that when people become elders, particularly at that moment in retirement for people who have the privilege of retiring, that we find ourselves kind of unprepared. We look forward to it when we're working hard, thinking about how great the free time would be. But then when we arrive in the free time, it can be very difficult and hard to make the transition, and maybe even hard for the people that love us. I would say that there are probably, besides birth and death, there are three very predictable times when particularly men, but women as well, have trouble. One of them is from youth to adult. One of them is in midlife. Most of us have friends who exhibited some really amazing creativity in midlife. Maybe we have ourselves. But elderhood, the entry into elderhood can be, I think, even more dramatic, and perhaps maybe even fewer people actually consciously make that transition than when we came out of youth or when we came through midlife. I don't think I've seen such a vivid display of the five great negative feelings and negative energies as I have in people my age: being sad or resentful, angry, shame, being afraid or feeling empty. And I just want them to know that that's not necessary to stay there. In fact, I would say that I'm in my studio right now, and the man who occupied this studio before we moved into this house was a photographer, an artist as well. And one night in this time of his life, he drove down to the hospital, parked on the outside of the parking lot, put his driver's license in the windshield, and a bullet through his head. And I want to do what I can in my elder years to keep that from happening. And that's a pretty radical example, but there are other very, should I say, very tender things I see happening, that resources just get smothered, and elder people are huge resources.
Yeah. So the elder rites kind of takes men through, if they're at the beginning of the journey and they might be in their early 60s and preparing for that transition into retirement. And for others, they're already well on the way. They've already retired and they're wanting to deepen that work into the eldering years. It's some of the work that we do there is pretty universal work. So there's some life review. There's tending to what your sense of how are you to be in the world. The question moves a little bit more from what am I to do at this time, and more to like, what's the quality of my being that I want to bring to each moment. And we do death work. It's a rich 5 days. I'm wondering as you look out over the number of men who've gone through this, what do kind of senses, how has the Elder Rites of Passage helped some of those men, or even helped yourself, make some of those transitions?
Well, something that I paid attention to that Richard said once. Oh, well, he used the vivid visual of Mary receiving the body of Jesus as he is lowered from the cross into her arms. And he talks about grief. And whenever there's a transition, you have to say goodbye. You have, like, for instance, to become an elder, it's hard to say this even. I'm cautious about saying, I'm not sure why, but you have to let go of being an adult. Just like when you become an adult, you have to let go of being a youth. That's hard because there are privileges and entitlements and securities of being an adult that must be let go of. And there are also things that we did that were wrong, things that were crazy and stupid and silly. No matter how hard we tried to do it right, we didn't. And there are resentments that we carry with us that have to be let go of. And it's hard to imagine, but there's a grief with that, of letting go of that. And so Richard's image of Mary, who receives the body of her own son into her arms. I especially remember Michelangelo's portrayal of that in sculpture at St. Peter's Basilica. It is so tender. She does this. She presents to the grief, and she lets grief have its way, like Richard says. Lets grief have its way without projecting the pain on anybody else, until it brings us to a place of deep gratitude and abundance and compassion and strength. And that's what the rites of passage do. You know, to me, transformation, I don't know who said it, but I heard one time that transformation, something you can't do for yourself and nobody can do it for you. It's the work of mystery, and it's pure grace. Transformation is something that happens to us. It's something that's done for us. We are carried like passengers in a boat through a transition that can be very difficult and also very exciting. And I think what the rites do, the rites offer these grace-filled elements like ritual, which Americans don't really understand very well. We don't have an imagination for ritual. We tend to think of it as something that we get over, that we finish so we can get on with life. But ritual basically is a transforming event, and it doesn't just stop working on us when we're done with that initial ritual, but it continues to work on us as we live into the ritual in the years ahead. But the conversation, the solitude, the teachings, the beauty, what else? I'm trying to think of other elements, stories, especially in the Elder Rites of Passage. A story can completely change your life, and you can enter into it wherever you are. It doesn't matter whether you're approaching elderhood or whether you're in the transition or whether you've been an elder for a while. These things can take you, they receive you right where you are, and you can go with it.
There's one of the joys of being in the position I'm in is watching and learning from all of you guys. And I will say here in Washington, there is some marked difference by the men who've gone through this, the way they're showing up in the world, within their community, within the Lumen, within their homes. They are men who are freed to be wild and free in a way that that they were maybe having to feel a little bit more considered in the past. And now we do a lot of work with the Holy Fool at the end, in the sense of being able to speak truth to power, to play, to enter life from a very different posture. And I can see how that's like um, shown up. One of our brothers here right now is dealing with cancer, and um, the way he's working with it is so generative. One of the things we have men read before is a short booklet on hallowing one's wound, making one's own wound sacred. It comes from Desjardins' idea, but this is kind of this wasn't written by Teilhard. It's written by, I think, a Quaker, and you're starting to see as these men's bodies. We're working with two men right now on their burials. They're going to be buried at a Coney Ranch there, out in this wilderness graveyard where it's just a forest of trees on the rim of a canyon. And when we do the work in the graveyards, those first couple years, and men have dug the graves. These are graves that end up actually being used by other people. And knowing that now some of these men are close to being actually buried in that same graveyard. The place I'm sitting in, and there's other younger men who get to come to the elder rites and help hold the container, because you old farts can't do it on your own. There's too much energy of just having to hold the whole thing together.
Mhm.
And what we younger guys get to see is as your bodies fall apart, there's a light that starts to emanate in a different way, a different quality than even than we see in these younger decades. So I'm grateful for the perch in which I get to sit. So.
Well, I think being an elder makes you appreciate uh, the younger bucks. You find yourself having all the imagination for things, but you don't have the energy that you used to have. And it's so wonderful to see young men who have an imagination for what can be done, and they can approach issues, and they can be warriors, and they can work hard. And that's basic. The first half of our life, that's what we do, is we work at stuff, and we keep attending to things so that that our lives, our families, especially our people that we love, but also the culture does well. And there's so much to rejoice over younger men and what they do to transform the world. But when you are in the elder rites of passage, there comes a moment when the light goes on and you know that you can't do that anymore. And there's a grief in that, but that's okay, because elders, simply by rejoicing over younger men and encouraging and being a presence of hope and confidence, that just simply being a gracious, non-anxious present is as transformative as any well-strategized approach to any difficult issue in life or in this world. And that one of the great losses in not having elder circles in every community, not having a consciousness of elderhood, is that it's so easy for a culture, for a community to lose hope and to not think in terms of abundance, because people who at the prime of their life for this sort of thing, at the culmination of our lives in the golden years, uh, we don't have the imagination to just offer that, and the confidence that just rejoicing over people and things just the way they are can be utterly transformative. So that's what I would say. What I see coming out of elder uh, intensive events is um, men who are joyful and love, have compassion and love for one another, and who want to spend the rest of their lives speaking good words over people and over projects. And I have a lot of confidence that that can change a situation that is even more disastrous than the one we live in right now.
Wow. Well, I want to just keep talking with you forever. I'm aware that the people who are watching this are probably like, I actually think they're probably going, keep going, Lou, preach it.
No, they're probably saying enough already.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Ned. It's so
Yeah.
great to see you. And I'm so grateful for Illumin and all the work that's being done and the labors that are going into it. I know that they will give birth. And I look forward, our best years lie ahead, brothers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not only that, but we're not the only ones doing this.
Right.
I mean, this work is being done all over the world by people quite different than we are. And we have partners of all different types, all different religions and cultures and style, languages. We're joining.
One of the joys for me about this event is that it is not just an event. It's there's an active group of elders who meet on an ongoing basis after the elder rites, and there's more work coming out of that. And one of the delights that I get as I'm also the convener here in Washington is men contact me and say, I need to talk to an elder, and do you know any? I'm like, well, tell me what's going on for you. And then I get to put them in contact with one of the just remarkable men from this circle. And so it's becoming its own, the community itself. Each of the men have their own sense of how are they to be as they come out of the Elder Rites of Passage. But there's also this communal sense that they're invited as a community of what does it mean for us to be eldering collectively. And we're starting to see some of the first fruits of that as well. So
well, if somebody once said, beauty will save the world.
Yeah.
And when I look at Illumin, I can see it save its gracious healing presence and the beauty of the men that I get to share life with in Illumin. That's saving and healing, and it's all, it comes out of wounds, and it's being in touch with our wounds too. I mean, I appreciate that kind of the treasuring of the glorious wounds that we bear that represent not just our pain, but also healing.
Well, Lou, I can't wait to see you again in person.
Yeah,
we were supposed to see each other just this last month. COVID had its own ideas about that, but
that's the worst part of COVID. missing the EROP. That was really hard.
Yeah.
But next year
in Jerusalem.
That's right. I love you, Ned. Thanks for
I love
calling.
you too. Take care. We'll talk soon.